Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Chip Stock Investor. Happy Monday. We're taking a break from our regularly scheduled programming to talk about the NBA playoffs.
Are we? Really? That's fantastic.
Maybe we'll also talk about the great sell off we had on Friday as well. I know many of our viewers were anxious to find out what we thought about Friday's stock activity. And so we'll cover that. We'll talk about why we're not worried.
Maybe for those who have a much healthier relationship with the stock market, let's get you up to speed. What happened on Friday, Casey?
Well, Nvidia and Supermicro Computer pulled a Dallas Mavericks style dive on Friday. Nvidia down 10% and Supermicro Computer even more, 23%.
Yet, as you can see from the VanEck Semiconductor ETF, ticker symbol SMH, the large cap semiconductor stocks down 4.5% on the day. Now, granted, SMH in particular is top heavy Nvidia, a very large proportion of that portfolio. So, Casey, a lot of these companies took a header, but not all of them. So, a nice average 4.5% drop. That's certainly a sizable one day decrease, but it's an average. Nvidia, Supermicro, really, really big hit, but some actually held fairly steady, thus averaging things out to just 4.5% drop for the day. Lots of reasons swirling as to why this is. Let's address that. This seems to be maybe the primary scapegoat in sifting through the news. Supermicro Computer announced the timing of their next earnings report on April 30th, just a little over a week away from the time of this recording. But unlike previous quarters, they didn't give an earnings preview. So I think a lot of investors worried something must be wrong, right? Maybe, maybe not. Companies don't normally give a preview of earnings 1 week before. So maybe Supermicro is just saying, you know what, this is kind of a waste of time. Everybody can just wait a week and we'll tell you what happened. Or maybe things are not so flattering like they were the last few quarters. We'll just have to wait and see. But Casey, this is where it becomes important to zoom out, right? It's just one day.
Yes, just like in the playoffs, this is a 7-game series, not a one and done deal. We're just in game one.
Yeah. And maybe even just like a minute in a single game. If we do zoom out, let's just look at Nvidia. Since we started the channel in October 2022, this thing is up almost 700%, 700% in a year and a half. That's insane. 10% daily drop in the grand scheme of things, not a big deal. Supermicro Computer up almost 800% since October 2022. Up even more than that if you go back beyond just the start of this new bull market here in the last year, year and a half. And if you take an average of all of the top large cap semiconductor names, still fantastic run here to kick off this semiconductor and accelerated computing bull market in the last year and a half, almost 80%. Again, that includes Friday's sell off. And if you compare all three of these, the individual stocks, if that's your thing, or if you like the ETF approach, you are obliterating the market. The S&P up just 24% since October 2022. If you are beating the market this badly, it's not unusual to have these wild 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, even pretty bad quarterly swings. It's a bull market. At this point, what we saw on Friday is still entirely within the realm of completely normal. I'll reiterate that one more time. What we saw on Friday, what we saw in the last month is still completely within the realm of normal for a bull market. You have pullbacks. We said last year, headed into 2024, things were not going to be as easy going forward. This is what we were talking about. Expect there to be pullbacks and volatility. Stock prices do not go straight up and to the right without some little intermittent dips.
Another one of the reasons that many investors are blaming this drop is the auto and industrial market segment of the semiconductor industry. It had its peak in late 2023, and many companies that we have covered have talked about this being a downturn for especially the automotive industry. You can see that in our chart there. We don't know exactly when the bottom is. It's possible that it's currently bottoming, but we'll have to wait to find out.
Yeah, not new news. Some investors latched on to TSMC, Taiwan Semi, mentioning some softness in automotive and industrial during their last earnings call last week. All they really did, folks, was just reiterate what the auto and industrial chip makers and chip designers have been telling us all along. And then those two other markets right above that, cloud and enterprise, that's excluding the AI infrastructure, which is a new market in max growth mode, as well as consumer, PC, and smartphone. They're just now coming out of their downturn and just starting a new growth cycle. When you are in an early growth cycle, and especially when you've had many of these stock prices run up as much as they did, like AMD, for example, the first few months of this year, if the stock price outpaces reality, expect a pullback. This is the start of a new growth cycle, and these companies haven't even really begun reporting their new growth rates yet. We don't know what the trajectory of the new upcycle looks like.
The second reason we talked about in our ASML video recently after their earnings report, they didn't have a great earnings report, right?
No, they didn't. And again, no surprise. Kasey pointed this out in our last video. ASML management has been telling us since at least October, November 2023 that 2024 was going to be a transition year. What does that mean? No growth this year, or very, very little at best. 2025 will be a different story, but this is not 2025 yet. We're still very much in 2024. All they did was confirm what they already said. And folks, a lot of people in the media suddenly pointing out this bookings for ASML's lithography equipment. Suddenly, like they've had this revelation, like, they knew what bookings were all along and they understand what that means for ASML's business. Okay, look, they don't. They don't know what they're talking about. Bookings are highly volatile from quarter to quarter. ASML, yes, has essentially a monopoly on high-end lithography equipment for semiconductor manufacturing. But again, that does not mean they just grow quarter in and quarter out. Their customers have very different demands. They have cash constraints. And so one quarter, they may just say, you know what? We're not going to place the order yet for that piece of equipment. We're going to wait 3 months and we'll place the order next quarter. That ultimately does not change the outlook for ASML's full year expected revenue. Again, they just reiterated what we already knew. Everybody just calm down. It's okay. Take a deep breath.
Should I play one of my meditations now that we can all do together? Maybe before that, let's talk about Taiwan Semiconductor and how they reiterated what they had previously said in their most recent earnings.
Yeah, Kasey, you already mentioned the automotive softness. You can see that in this chart, 0% quarter over quarter growth. They said that in Q2, things are going to be soft. Again, no new news here. What about smartphone though? 16% quarter over quarter drop. That looks terrifying. Game over for the smartphone market recovery.
Taking a look at this chart, once again, consumer, smartphone, PC, last peak, summer of 2022, last bottom, autumn of 2023, and we're currently at the start of a new growth cycle. However, there is every single year smartphone seasonality. After everybody goes and buys their new smartphone over the holiday season, there is a drop every single year in smartphone sales in the beginning of each year. And that's what's TSMC reiterated in their comments. Smartphone seasonality, completely normal. And again, here is the Q2 guidance for 2024 for TSMC. At the midpoint, they still expect a 27% year over year increase from Q2 of last year.
Yeah, that is monster growth. This company headed to more than likely far greater than $80 billion in revenue in full year 2024. We are still in the early innings of this growth cycle.
One other question and maybe scare that investors had is the earthquake that happened in Taiwan recently. And the management at TSMC addressed this head on in the earnings call. They said within 10 hours, they were back up and running at 70%. And in 3 days, back up and running at 100%. They had very little in the way of disruption. They did say that some of the wafers that they were manufacturing at that time, of course, were no longer usable. And so there was going to be a small amount of revenue absorption from that. But you can see that their gross margin and operating margin absorbed most of that. And they expected just a very small amount of effect in next quarter. So let's talk about this last question that we have. Now that there was this big sell-off, is it time to add and buy the dip?
Great question. We are still of the belief that this is the early innings of a new bull market for the stock market overall, for the economy overall, even early innings for this next upcycle in the semiconductor industry, which is cyclical. So time to buy the dip. That really is going to depend on you, what your personal portfolio looks like currently, what your goals are. But we addressed this a few weeks ago, Kasey, when we certainly did not call the top with Nvidia stock. That was not the point of the video about should you sell your Nvidia stock. It kind of also sort of called the top in Nvidia stock. You should be buying quality businesses because you believe in the business, not the stock price. And if you believe in the business and you believe it has fantastic ability to grow and deliver earnings growth over the long term, consider using a dollar cost average plan. And if you do, if you buy in batches, the question has been automated out of your control. Yes, you're going to buy the dip. Pretty simple, right? You don't even have to think about it. You put money into your account and you automatically buy the dip. Maybe you occasionally buy when the stock is a less than ideal price as well, like maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. But yes, of course, you're also going to end up buying the dip. To focus on quality businesses, diversify your portfolio, quit trying to make sweeping bets that you think are going to make you rich quick. Individual stocks are highly volatile. You need to be diversified and be patient. These little dips that we have in the market are entirely normal. They happen. Everyone's going to try to pin it on a reason. And sometimes there's just simply no other reason other than that stock prices got too high, too fast, and some people took profit and the stock price fell. It doesn't change the business itself. If that's what you're focused on, the business, not the stock price.
Okay, here's to hoping for a better week in the stock market, but in the playoffs too. Let's see what happens. Dallas needs to clean things up. Our backup plan is still working out. Go Nuggets. Thanks everybody for watching this episode of Chipstock Investor. We will have a short out regarding Netflix earnings later this week, as well as some exclusive in-depth deep dives into those earnings reports that we'll be posting on our Discord channel. You can have access to that via a membership here on YouTube or on Ko-fi. And if you're not into memberships, no worries. We'll post some of those notes for purchase over on our Ko-fi shop. We'll have another Chipstock Investor live discussion over on our Discord channel as well on Wednesday, April 24th, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern. So again, if you're a member of our Discord channel, check that out. And everyone, take a deep breath. It's going to be all right. We'll see you again soon at Chipstock Investor.